I'm going to start out giving a little bit of context about the Office Scripts effort and dive into a demo and show you a little bit about what we have in preview and what's coming. So our mission with Office Scripts is really to empower Office users to easily automate tasks and processes and to run their businesses efficiently anytime and anywhere. It's a big mission, and our initial scope is smaller than that mission, but that's the mission. And things we've learned from talking to our customers is that in the landscape of automation, customers seek to really save themselves time with the automation of repetitive tasks inside of Excel and Office products. They like to streamline processes and remove errors and human errors from processes. And then many folks in organizations like to increase their impact by growing new skills that give them new capabilities inside of our apps. And all these things ladder up to the ability to focus more on the creative tasks that they do in their work. And then further, I think there's a great opportunity that we've seen for business logic and rules to be embedded directly with the content that's running a business process. So these are some of the things that we've learned from talking to some of our customers. And when you think about the broad programmability options in Office today, we like to use this matrix to sort of think about what we have available. At the bottom, we have things that you are all very familiar with, being web add-ins and COM-based add-ins for a pro dev audience. On the left-hand side, these things are sort of desktop and bound individually focused. But on the right, we're focused on a modern environment that's web-based and collab. On the top, in the top left quadrant, we have something like VBA today. It's bound to the desktop. It's somewhat end-user approachable. And what we're trying to do with Office Scripts is fill that quadrant in the top right. So we have something that's alive with collaboration, it's focused on the web, and it's really end-user approachable. So anyone in your organization can start scripting. Before I dive into my demo, I just want to give a little bit of context of what the demo is about. So let's imagine that you work for a company that makes a small piece of software that we make available for folks on the web. And as folks download that piece of software, we collect download logs, and we really have a simple question about what percentage of these downloads are coming from outside of the US. So that's the context of the demo. Let me call up my fancy Edge browser. And just to set the stage here, my name is now Patty, and I am in Excel for the web. And you can see in this summary worksheet that I've already done the analysis of a few weeks here. So we can see that the majority of downloads are coming from outside the US. In my summary worksheet, you can see that I have analysis for the past couple of weeks done. And my colleague has been busy putting a bunch of raw data into this workbook. And so I've got about 6 weeks of data to clean up and get ready for analysis. Typically, a user might do this with a bunch of manual steps, but with Office Scripts, you can go to the Automate tab and click on Record Actions. And what Record Actions does is it observes every step that you take in your Excel workbook and records a script of those scripts. So I'm going to select the last 3 columns in this workbook and delete them. And you can see that action is recorded as intense in the Record Actions pane. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the data in this worksheet. And I am going to convert it to a table with headers. And again, those actions are captured. And then there's something funky with the header here, so I'm just going to try to make it a little more legible by changing a few colors. And you can see with very little effort, I've been able to create a set of steps that I may be able to repeat on each one of these worksheets. So if I click stop and I name this create and format table, for purposes now, I'm not going to give it a description, but if I click save, Excel is going to take me to a code editor task pane with a details page where I can see information about that script. So again, without looking at code, I've created a script that I can reuse in this workbook. But it's only going to work on this particular sheet, given the shape of this data. So what I can do is I can go to the code editor and change one line of this code. Instead of using the getRange method, I can use the getUsedRange method. And then I'm going to save that script. And you can see as I do that, I have access to IntelliSense and the full JS API that you may be familiar with from developing add-ins. And I'm going to go back to the script details page. And you can see here that I now have a script that I can run on any of these worksheets, regardless of the shape of the data, and get the results that I need. And with very little effort, I've written something that can save me and my team a bunch of time. So I'll just finish running this on each of the worksheets. Okay, so this is great, but the data we need to do our analysis is not quite here yet. So let's imagine I'm going to pulling a cake out of the oven moment here. Let's imagine that we've already written a script that can help us do that analysis. So here I've written a script that grabs a number of ranges in the current workbook, manipulates them, extracts the IP address from this worksheet, and determines whether that IP address is from the US or not. Right now I've got a few lines of code commented out. And so if I click run on this thing, the console log or output log is going to pop up. And here you can see that from the first line of data here, we're extracting that IP address, converting it to an integer, and determining whether it's in the US or not. So the console here is the way that you would troubleshoot your scripts. This is all very familiar to some of you that have been using ScriptLab. Here we're taking a very similar set of features and making them a core part of Excel on the web natively. So one thing I'm going to do here is go back to that console statement, comment it out, and then uncomment a few lines of code here to get the output that I want. So I'm going to save that script, close the console, and then I'm going to run this. And we should see a new column added with some summary data for each one of these worksheets. And so as I'm doing this, I'm just going to reflect a little bit that we have custom TypeScript written inside the context of Excel that is runnable by any member of your team that has access to this workbook. And so this is truly meeting our goals with this scenario is truly meeting our goals by removing errors in the process and really saving your team a bunch of time. So there's a unit of productivity that's highly customized to the way your team runs their business on a regular basis. And of course, just like anything scripting, instead of doing all these manual steps across each worksheet, you could tie them all together with a script. And so if I go back to the summary, all the additional 6 weeks are added, and we have a chart, and we can confirm we have a fairly consistent pattern here of more of our downloads coming from outside of the US than elsewhere. So this is exactly the type of scenario that we expect to be able to run or create with Office scripts. And I'll just pause there to highlight two things. The first is that currently in the Automate tab, we have two actions. You'll notice a big empty space at the right. That is something that we will be filling with more features and the capability to browse scripts associated with yourself or this workbook. And then the other thing is these scripts that we've created are all available on OneDrive. So they're automatically stored to your OneDrive, and you have access to them there. Now, this capability to automate in Excel doesn't end with just the context of Excel and a manual run operation. We have the capability to hook these scripts up to flows in Power Automate. So in Power Automate, you can automate many things, many workflows, and connect your different services together into automated workflows. And Office scripts is one of those things that you can hook up. So I'm going to switch back to the presentation. And we don't have this yet working in my particular demo environment, but here is an example of what one of those flows in Power Automate might look like based on the scenario that we just walked through. So here we have a recurrence that's happening 4:30 a.m. every day. And I have an additional script here that is opening up that same Excel file and checking for new worksheets. If no new worksheets are returned, then the process stops. If a worksheet is found, we start running the two scripts that we just walked through. First, I clean and format the table, and then I process the IP address. And then an additional step takes that chart that was created and posts it to a Teams channel with details, with a message about current status. So now your team stays informed about the current status of software downloads for your project without any of the manual effort. You can see there's two sort of critical aspects of these scripts in these Power Automate flows. The first is that a script can take values from previous steps in the flow and as parameters, and it can return values to subsequent steps. So the chart is an example of a returned value that's processed by the post message action inside of flow. So now that I've given you a little bit of a taste of how you can how folks in your organizations can create, share, and schedule, and even manage some of their scripts, I want to talk a little bit about what's available now and what's coming. So today in preview, we have the action recorder and code editor that I shared, and the rest of the things on this slide are coming soon. The ability to actually share a script in a workbook is coming. The Power Automate connector is coming. The ability for admins to control and manage scripts inside of their organization is coming. This notion of being able to do some of that in-client scheduling directly inside of Excel, that's what we mean by client here, and the ability to provide organizations with a robust script management experience. And as Alex mentioned earlier, to get access to this feature, there's a few things. One, this is E3 and E5 only. And then IT admins need to enable this in their tenant. And once that's done, the Automate tab should be showing up for users inside of that tenant. And I think we are in the process of rolling this out, and I think it was just this week that we reached 100%. So that every Excel file or a tenant that's enabled on E3 or E5 should have the Automate tab in it. And from there, you can start using scripts.
And does that include tenants created through the developer program?
Yes, it does.
Great.
As long as the admin of that tenant has enabled this thing. We would love your feedback. The developer community is a crucial user of this type of functionality. So please share your thoughts on Office.com Excel feedback, and of course join the Excel community. I personally believe there's a great opportunity, just like in ScriptLab, for you to be able to explore the APIs that are available in the Excel landscape. And certainly the ability to record a script and view that code will help you through lots of different challenges that you may have in understanding our APIs. And that's certainly something that we've seen in the older VBA landscape, is that you learn by recording. And so we hope that you are able to take advantage of that in a similar fashion with Office Scripts. That's the end of my demo. Thanks for the time. I look forward to seeing any and all the questions that you guys have.
Yeah, we got a couple. There's a discussion happening right now about integrating Office Scripts with add-ins, like potentially recording actions within your add-in and having those be replayed, like automating task pane actions.
Yeah.
So is that something that is
currently out of scope? The ability to record things that are not native to Office is out of scope.
All right. And there was a question around Power Automate being suitable for application level add-ins. So is there like integration between add-ins and Power Automate today? Or is that up to the add-in developer to create those connectors?
I think it would be up to the add-in developer to create those connectors. So if your add-in has a REST API, you can create a custom connector in Power Automate, and then that can be called as a part of a flow in some way. I think those are the technical building blocks that you would need.
All right, cool. There was also a question around using Python to script actions in Excel for the web. Is that on your radar or knowledge?
That is not currently on the roadmap. That is consistent. A second language is consistently come up in the Excel context. So we're aware of those conversations and that feedback, but no definitive plans yet.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks. Cool stuff. Great questions too.